During the house inspection, the realtor shrieked at the owner, "Unlock that door! What are you hiding in the basement?" Every potential buyer in the living room turned to stare at me. The realtor, a woman named Diane Crawford, was pointing at the padlocked door beneath my staircase with her manicured finger trembling. I had told her 3 times before the showing that the basement was off limits. I had explained it was a condition of the sale. I had put it in writing. Now she was standing in my foyer accusing me of hiding something sinister, while 6 strangers watched with growing suspicion. My hands went cold. I asked her to step outside so we could discuss this privately. She laughed and said she wasn't going anywhere until I opened that door. My name is Warren Ashby. I had lived in this house for 11 years. I was selling it because my wife had passed away 8 months ago, and the memories were suffocating me. The basement had been her art studio. Her paintings were still down there. Her brushes were still in their jars. Her last unfinished canvas was still on the easel exactly where she left it the morning she collapsed in the garden. I couldn't bring myself to move any of it. I couldn't bring myself to let strangers walk through and judge her work. The basement was staying locked until after the sale. That was non-negotiable. Diane had agreed to this in writing. Now she was making me look like a criminal. One of the potential buyers, a man in an expensive suit, asked what exactly I was keeping down there. I told him it was personal. He crossed his arms and said he wouldn't consider purchasing a house with a locked mystery room. Another buyer pulled out her phone and started recording. She said this was giving her true crime podcast vibes. Diane seized on the momentum. She said in 15 years of real estate she had never seen a seller refuse basement access. She said it raised serious red flags. She asked the room if anyone else found this suspicious. 3 people nodded. 1 couple headed for the door. Diane smiled at me like she had won something. I pulled out my phone and opened the contract we had both signed. I scrolled to the clause about basement access and held the screen up for everyone to see. I read it out loud. Seller reserves the right to exclude basement from all showings due to personal effects of deceased spouse. Buyer to be granted access only after accepted offer and before closing. Initialed by both parties. I pointed at Diane's signature. I asked her if she wanted to explain why she was violating her own agreement. Her face flickered with something ugly. She said circumstances had changed. She said she had received information that required immediate action. She said a concerned neighbor had called her that morning with disturbing allegations. The room went quiet. I asked what allegations. Diane pulled out her own phone and showed me a text message thread. The messages were from someone named Anonymous Neighbor. They claimed I had been bringing large bags into the basement at night. They claimed strange smells had been coming from my property. They claimed I had been acting erratic since my wife's death. I felt my chest tighten. I knew exactly who had sent those messages. My neighbor Gerald had been trying to buy this property for years. He wanted to tear it down and expand his lot. When I refused to sell to him, he started a campaign of harassment, noise complaints, code violations, anonymous tips to the HOA. Now he was trying to sabotage my sale. I told Diane the texts were from a neighbor with a vendetta. She shook her head and said she couldn't take that risk. She said her reputation was on the line. She said if there was nothing wrong, then I should have no problem opening the door. The woman with the phone was still recording. The man in the suit had his arms crossed tighter. I realized I was losing control of the situation. If I didn't open that basement, rumors would spread. The house would become unsellable. Gerald would win. I walked to the padlocked door and pulled out my keys. My hands were shaking. I hadn't been down there since the funeral. I wasn't ready for this, but I didn't have a choice anymore. The lock clicked open. The door swung inward. The smell of oil paint and turpentine drifted up the stairs. I descended first with Diane close behind. The basement was exactly as my wife had left it. Canvases lined the walls. Jars of brushes sat on the workbench. Her last painting stood on the easel, half finished, a portrait of our garden in spring. Diane stopped at the bottom of the stairs. Her expression changed completely. She walked slowly around the room looking at each painting. She asked me why I hadn't told her my wife was an artist. I said she had never asked. I said she had been too busy accusing me of being a murderer. The woman with the phone had followed us down. She lowered her device and whispered that the paintings were beautiful. The showing ended 15 minutes later. 3 buyers made offers that same day. Gerald's texts were forwarded to the police, who charged him with harassment and filing false reports. Diane Crawford lost her license after I filed a complaint with the real estate board documenting her contract violation. My wife's painting sold at auction for $84,000, and I donated every cent to the hospice that cared for her.